My next guest is a UFC analyst and reporter, and now a commentator for Dana White's Contender Series, Laura Sanko, joining me here on the program. Laura, how are you?
I'm doing great. Busy day. It's always a lot of variety in my life between the UFC work, mom work, and then I live on a ranch, so sometimes ranch duty calls as well. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me on.
No, thank you for fitting me in. I know you got a busy schedule. At least we're on an off week, right, with the UFC, so there's a little bit of breathing room. But I wanted to start first with this Contender Series commentary gig. Congratulations. This is something we talked about years ago. I think when I first interviewed you about, getting to do commentary for, a pretty big promotion, in this case, Dana White's Contender Series. When did you know this was a possibility? When did you have an idea that this could be a role that was going to be in your lap, so to speak, and getting this tremendous opportunity?
Well, in my head, it was always a possibility, but
Yeah.
in my head and reality are sometimes two different places. So I didn't know. It really was not like something that we took, baby steps. I was taking steps toward on my own in terms of working at the LFA and doing commentary there and in Invicta as well. But it was a surprise in terms of my work with the UFC. It had been discussed for, it's something I had been bringing up for years. But, for a lot of reasons, it was never no. It was never, we don't want women there. It was always something that Dana in particular, I have to say this, Dana in particular was always very supportive of this idea. But as with many things in life, it has to be the right time and, you have to be ready. So, luckily for me, that time happened a couple weeks ago, and it was a big surprise and last minute warning, but I think that kind of worked to my favor. I had no time to overthink it. Just, I know the game. I know my shit, and away we went.
Was it a call, email? Like, how did you find out?
Yeah, so I was actually in the air on an airplane headed to Vegas to just do my normal Contender Series role, the reporting and the ring announcing. And I got a text from Dana that said, "Hey, are you in town?" And I said, "No, I'm actually on a plane right now." He said, "Okay, well, come to my office when you get here." And anybody who's ever gotten a text, "Come to my office," whether it's your principal or your boss or, the spousal, "We need to talk" text, it felt like that. I was like, oh, this could either be great or this could be really bad. And to be honest, you just never know. So I was nervous to get that text, but hopeful. And yeah, I went to his office when I landed, and it was great. He just said, we've really appreciated the work that you've put in over the last couple of years in particular. But I've been at the UFC, I think, longer than people realize, and was working at the UFC before Contender Series was even a thing. So just we appreciate the work you've put in the last couple of years, and you've been killing it on the weigh-in show, and you've been killing it on quick hits and backstage reporting and reporting for a pay-per-view. Now, I mean, all of the things that I've done. He was very complimentary of, and he said, and you know, you want to call these fights tomorrow? That's kind of how he said it. I said, I mean, I think I swore because that's kind of how I talk when I'm not around my children. I said, "Fuck yes, I do."
Good.
So he said, "Now listen, we can hold off a week if this is too last minute for you. Um, if you need a little bit more time to prepare." I was like, "No, no, 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 I got this." So yeah, I was happy, and it was a big surprise.
What's been the feedback like? Social media can be a pretty tough place, but I've seen nothing but positive comments. How has that been? Just, getting all these compliments from everyone, not just fighters, but media. How's that been?
It's been huge. I can't tell you how rewarding it is to have people's people whose opinions I really respect. There's always going to be a handful of people that hate anything I
Right.
do or hate anything anybody does. There are certain people I think I could rescue a puppy from a burning building and they'd find something to shitty to say about it. But
Yeah.
no, overwhelmingly, it's been positive, and that's been really touching because I know better than anyone that the UFC fan base is a tough fan base. I'm part of that fan base, and I'm sure I can be tough at times. So I was a little nervous about what the reception would be like, but it's been amazing. It's been great, and there are so many people that deserve my thanks in sort of helping me have those moments along the way, whether it was calling me an analyst before the UFC was calling me an analyst, or all of those little intermediary steps that kind of helped this come to fruition. There were a lot of people that would publicly state, "No, wow, she really knows what she's talking about. She can she can do more than just ask intelligent questions. She's worthy of having an opinion on this sport. So a lot of those people kind of circled back and said nice things, and that was really cool. So yeah, it's been awesome.
So anyone you feel like you model your style after, whether it's delivery or the way you do your preparation, is there anyone that sort of, because I know, speaking for myself, there's certain broadcasters that I watched growing up, and I don't try and copy them, but I definitely take things
Yeah.
away from them. Is there anyone like that for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I certainly listen to all of them with a fresh set of ears and have been for the past couple of years in particular, ever since I started doing commentary in these other organizations. I think I'd like to think of myself as and this is these are big shoes to fill, so I don't mean to compare myself, but I'd like to aspire to be like a nice mixture of Brian Stan and Joe Rogan. The
Nice.
work ethic and the research that Brian Stan always brought to the table. I mean, I remember working with him my first few years in the UFC, and goodness, that guy researched like no one else. He was watching every moment of fight footage he could. He was talking directly with the fighters, not just through the fighter meetings. I mean, the guy was really putting an effort into to tell their stories properly and to tell the story of their technique properly as well,
Mhm.
because you know there's background to why certain people do things certain way in the context of a fight, not just backstory. And then I think on the flip side, I've been a fan of Joe Rogan forever, ever since I started watching the UFC, and that was a long time ago. And what I love that he brings is just this genuine excitement that a fan has, right? It's almost like he's this super fan and he just so happens to get to call the fight. So if I can pair that perspective of just like this excitement and like genuine joy every single time I get to call a fight, which I do feel, paired with the homework and the study of Brian Stan, I hope I can kind of be that. So yeah, Stan Rogan.
You definitely do your homework. I'm on Pacific time. I live in Vancouver, and I was with my son in the backyard this Sunday, and I get a DM from you, and you were asking me about some footage to look up. So I don't know what time it would have been your place, but it was still like in the evening on like a Sunday. And I know you got to call the fights on a Tuesday, but what's your preparation look like, sort of leading into that? And by the way, you did get the fight, right? Because we were talking about you needed some footage or something.
I did.
You ended
Yes.
up
Yes.
watching. It
Thank
was
you
Chad
very
and
much.
Helliger, by the way. If people were wondering.
Yes. Yes. Thank you very much for that. And I'm telling you, it's helpful to know. It's helpful to know how these guys fight coming in, and it's helpful, I think, to see the growth of their career. Being able to watch as much footage as I was able to on Chad, you can see the improvements he's making. So those are important things to be able to talk about. But in terms of my preparation, it's a lot. But Contender Series is a little tricky because with the UFC, we do get handed like, here are stats, here are bios, and you get that a little bit with the Contender Series. They do their best to compile some stuff for you, but footage, backstory, all that stuff, that's up to me. And I'm burning the midnight oil on Google. I have learned how to go down all the rabbit holes on YouTube and Facebook to find obscure fight footage. And then the UFC does a fantastic job of doing really long form interviews with them, and I get the uncut version of their audio from that interview. So they're usually about 45 minutes long. So I'd say I spend all in probably 4 hours at least on every single fighter. Um, would be about average in terms of watching their fight footage, listening to their interviews, and then seeking out other interviews. And you're another spot I always go. I was like,
Thank you.
did James Lynch talk to them? I have my list of like places I check. So I appreciate the attention that the spotlight that you shine on the guys that are on the come up. It helps me.
That's great. So I got to know, and I want the honest opinion here. So you did hear my commentary. And by the way, commentary is not like my thing. It's just I happen to get this tremendous opportunity. Shout out to Saba Fadai, who's had me do a bunch of cards for Rise FC. But how did I do? I got to know from one of the best out there right now.
Oh, I give you an A+. I really do. Those fights are in some ways even trickier to call. Again, the reason I just mentioned, because there you have less research going in, but also they're a little unpredictable,
Mhm.
and you're not, at this level in the UFC, we have the best producers in the world. We've got the best equipment in the world, and I'm surrounded by great guys that help elevate my style as well. I'm calling fights with DC and Paul and Mike next week and Dan Helly, and I'm sure I'll eventually work with Brendan Fitzgerald and hopefully John Anik one day. So, uh, when you're surrounded by the best, it's easy to sound like the best. And I know that that's not always the case, on the more regional scene. So you sounded fantastic, and I think you should stick with it for
Well,
sure.
thank you. I appreciate that. Last thing on commentary, UFC. I know that's the pinnacle of getting to call fights. Are we getting closer to that? Is that you sort of get that indication? I know we're a couple fight cards in to Contender Series,
Yeah.
but have you sort of been given that indication that there might be a Laura Sanko on a UFC broadcast?
I haven't been given it definitively, in any sort of conversation, but I was really, man, I was really encouraged when Dana did an interview with Kevin Iole immediately following my first commentary assignment. And he did say to Kevin that he expects me to be doing fight nights by the end of the year. So I hope that that's the case. I hope I can prove myself, I guess, so that has to be the case. So that's always been my attitude about this, is like, I don't expect to be handed anything. And I also, while I understand that being female was a part of the reason why I got the job, I know that it wasn't the most important reason why I got the job. And I think the only reason why it was a reason is that part of the job is there's been a lack of telling the story of women's MMA to the full extent that it could be. So that being part of the job description, I do fit that bill, even though I'm not having that long Tapology page. I've been in this game since 2007 and been training consistently since then, and ingrained in the culture of MMA, and in particular women's MMA, and the differences that we see in career trajectory, the differences in why women fight, the differences in what it's like to try to balance having kids at the right age, which also happens to be your peak physical age where you should be fighting, all of those things, as well as some of the different techniques that women bring. So that being part of the job description helped, but I definitely, I earned my stripes, and I think the opportunities I got in the LFA in particular, as well as Invicta, were a big part of the reason why this door opened. So I hope that I can earn more stripes on the Contender Series, and more doors will open.
And as if you're not busy enough doing commentary, being a mom, everything else, you're part of Wimp to Warrior, which I've heard about for years. For those who don't know as well, Rich Chu, who's the Bellator matchmaker, is with them as well. What's that been like, getting to work with them and being a part of this really great sort of organization and message to a lot of youth out there?
Oh my gosh, I can't say enough about it. And my relationship with that organization, I really am a part of the organization. A lot of people think, oh, they pay you to make social media posts. I'm actually a part of the team. It just so happens that, hey, why not have another job? And Whip to Warrior, for people who aren't familiar with it, is the easiest way to describe it is it's the best way for someone with no martial arts background to be introduced to MMA. In particular, people who maybe don't want to make fighting a career, but they want to challenge themselves with the idea of what it would be like to be a fighter. Do I have that inside myself? Am I capable of doing that? And in the pursuit of knowing whether I'm capable of doing that, what will I learn, and how will I change my body? It checks so many boxes. And I think anybody who's trained knows that walking into an MMA gym is not the easiest thing in the world, especially the good ones, because the good ones are designed around a professional fight team. And they somewhat intentionally make it difficult to just rock up and join the team. There needs to be a vetting process, and sometimes that vetting process doesn't make it accessible to the everyday person. So Wimp to Warrior comes in, and a gym that's running the Wimp to Warrior program makes MMA accessible to the everyday person, the accountant, the mom, the lawyer, the plumber, whoever, you know, someone with a regular job who thinks, man, I wonder if I could do that. Man, I wonder if I did MMA, if I could lose this weight I've been meaning to lose. Or I wonder if I did MMA, if it would just be a good psychological outlet for me. That's how I found MMA. So when I was introduced to the idea of Whip to Warrior, I was so drawn to it because it's my story. Like, I didn't set out to be an MMA fighter. I was looking to get in shape, but more than anything, I was looking to have an outlet to deal with some of the problems I was having in my personal life at the time. And I needed to deal with depression, to be honest with you. And man, MMA is the best medicine there is, in my opinion. It's saved me 3 different times from from depression for a variety of reasons throughout my life. And if I can be a part of an organization that saves someone else, whether it be from depression or, present someone else an opportunity to change their body, or just, I think it appeals to the same people who like to do CrossFit, same people who like to do Tough Mudders, that type of personality that's like, man, I like a good challenge. Let's see if I can do this. It's the perfect program for that because it's 20 weeks of intensive, well-organized training where, when you join an MMA gym, you get thrown in the deep end. Like, you're starting wherever they are, and there's not really a curriculum that is like built often. Jiu-jitsu is a little different, but MMA is kind of like, well, you're here, start learning. This allows you to start at the beginning and learn sequentially, learn over the appropriate amount of time with the right type of training partners, with excellent instructors. And at the end, you're offered the opportunity and strongly encouraged to have your first amateur MMA fight against another person who did the program. So you get that experience of like, do I really have what it takes? And you're going to find out, and DC is running the program in his gym, I think in the fall, and he's made the commitment to walk every single one of his Wimp to Warrior participants out to their first fight. And I just think, oh man, I can't imagine like having DC walk you out to your first amateur MMA fight. That would be insane. That'd be crazy. So it's a program that we are looking to spread across the nation. And I think in particular, January of next year, you'll start to see it take off. But there are gyms right now currently running it. There are gyms that are about to start running it. And you can find all that information on the Wimp to Warrior website. They've got it all laid out there. So pretty soon, there's definitely going to be a gym in your area. And I strongly recommend people, if they have any curiosity about it all, to take a look.
Awesome. Yeah. Excited about the growth in that and glad to see you join forces with them. I think it's a really good relationship. Okay. We got to talk a little bit of UFC here. I know we have a break this weekend, but UFC 266 is right around the corner here. We got that Alex Volkanovski and Brian Ortega featherweight title fight. I love this fight, not just because it's such a competitive matchup on paper, but I love the fact that these two guys kind of got into it a bit on the Ultimate Fighter. Like, you didn't really expect it. I remember when they announced the coaches, I thought, this is going to be kind of boring, but they've actually been pretty, kind of going at it a little bit. Just your thoughts on the fight and the implications for both guys, because, Volkanovski, people still say he's not the real champ because of this Holloway fight. And then, with Ortega, he really proved people wrong against the Korean Zombie.
Yeah, I think both of these guys have something to prove, and both of them have a little extra sauce in the game now, having spent so much time around each other and had a few back and forth moments. I always like that. I like a good backstory. I like, not that I enjoy trash talk, but I like when there's a little something extra as you're watching the fight. That there's more meaning than just, oh, this is another win. And there's a lot on this fight, not just the history between these two now that we've even been able to kind of participate in as viewers. But as you say, this is a real career pivot point for both of them. And for Alex, he needs, for whatever reason, and I don't think it's justified, but he needs a win that's just completely indisputable. Mm-hmm. Completely like, wow, Alex went out there and did something that no one can argue with and that no one can pick at. It's unfortunate that, I shouldn't say unfortunate, it's unfortunate for him that those fights were so close and so competitive, and some would say controversial. Mm-hmm. So for him, he needs to go out there and have a big win. And for Brian Ortega, man, that last fight, that last performance, I think I said this on one of the weigh-in shows, you see fighters who add tools to their game from fight to fight. Brian Ortega went to Home Depot and bought every single tool that Home Depot had and added it to his game because he looked like a completely different fighter. So I can't wait to see. I mean, if he's able to level up even more, Katie bar the door, I think that man has the potential to be a very long-standing champion because now he's got hands, like real hands, and we've always known he's had a nasty ground game. So this is an exciting one. I mean, Alex has what it takes to deal with the hands and to potentially stifle the jiu-jitsu game. So it's one of those really fun clash of styles, and I can't wait. It's going to be good. Is
Lauren Murphy getting enough credit against Valentina Shevchenko? Her journey just to get to this title shot has been remarkable, and something I think unfortunately is going to get a little bit overshadowed just because how stacked the card is.
Of course. And I think Lauren Murphy has always been a little bit overshadowed for whatever reason. I'm very excited to see her in this spotlight, in this opportunity, because talk about a woman who has overcome immense, immense battles in her life, in the octagon, and to find herself in this moment is really motivating. And Valentina, here's the fact: Valentina has a worthy opponent. Valentina is, of course, one of those fighters like Amanda, where it's easy to just dismiss whoever shows up because of her greatness, and she is great. Uh, but this is MMA, and I'll even go so far as to say this is women's MMA. And in women's MMA in particular, I'm telling you, the distance between greatness and the people right under that is not as big as we sometimes think that it is. And if Lauren Murphy can show up at 100%, I do believe that she'll give Valentina a very good look in that fight. She's as tough as they come. No one is going to break the spirit of Lauren Murphy, even Valentina, with as many. She's got a variety of her offense is everywhere. She can do it all. She essentially has no holes in her game.
Mm.
So that's why it's hard to like break down these fights and present an interesting, like, oh well, what if Lauren does this? It doesn't really come down to that. It comes down to who shows up on the night, and if Lauren shows up, I think Lauren can really give her a good fight.
The last fight I got to talk about on there, Nick Diaz, Robbie Lawler. I love this rematch. I love their first fight. I think that's one of the fights that doesn't get talked about enough, just because if you listen to the commentary back then, they were all over Robbie Lawler and how great he was, and then Nick's like standing and here's the jiu-jitsu guy trading with him, and he knocks out Lawler, which was great. So I highly encourage people to watch the first fight. But what are you expecting in this with Nick Diaz being off since 2015?
I don't know what to expect from Nick Diaz. I mean, does anybody know what to expect from Nick Diaz? Listen, I think you can expect Nick Diaz to show up. He's not a guy who strikes me as someone who's going to have ring rust or nerves or anything like that. But has he added wrinkles to his game? I mean, has he improved? Is his boxing even better? Is his jiu-jitsu even better? Or are we going to see, a little bit of father time catching up with him, and a little bit of, I don't think it's ever mental ring rust with him, but age is a real thing and time is a real thing, and lack of octagon time can be a real thing. So I'm not prepared to answer those questions, but he's going to answer those questions for us. And I love old school matchups. I don't want them to be too old school, and you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Those are too much.
Yeah.
But this is the perfect amount of, legend versus legend. It's a cool throwback, and I can't wait to see it. I think it's gonna be an excellent fight.
And we had a UFC card last weekend with a lot of things to sort of take away. Paddy Pimblett, though, his debut, what did you think? I love the charisma from this guy. I think there's some room for improvement. Like, credit to Bisping. I thought that was so great where he was actually honest with Paddy, saying, look, you ran into some trouble. A lot of people would have fallen in love with the finish and not talked about the other stuff. Just your thoughts on his ceiling and what he brings to the UFC. He's got a lot of charisma.
He's the total package, and he's the type of guy who's going to rise very quickly if he can back it up, which so far he has. So while we can point to, it wasn't a flawless performance, the fact is it doesn't have to be a flawless performance. The finish is what matters. But as long as he has the attitude of going back to the gym and working on some of the things that he needs to work on, the fact is he shows up when it matters, and that is something that you can't teach people. He knows what to say on the mic, and that's not something that you can teach people. So for him to have all of those intangibles already in line, clearly an excellent skill set to be basing off of and building from, sky's the limit. I got to figure out how to do that accent though, because I so badly want to talk like that when the opportunity presents itself. I love the Liverpool accent so much. I could listen to Molly McCann talk all day long.
Yeah, no, it is. It's pretty awesome. And then the other thing from the event, obviously, is this sidekick thing with, Khalil Roundtree and Modestas. As someone who fought and someone who's in the gym and, trains and all that, just your take on, should it be banned? It is technically legal, but obviously Modestas is going to be on the shelf for a while after losing that fight.
It's such a weird thing to say that. I'll just start with my gut reaction is that yes, I would like that to be taken away, and I would actually like the 12-6 elbow to be let in, as weird as that sounds. It's weird to sort of cherry pick in a sport where we're like, yeah, I kicked him flush in the head, heard that one from the rafters, and you're obviously talking about some degree or another of brain damage. Whether we want to talk about that or not, like that is happening tiny bit every time you get knocked out cold, like some of these guys do. The difference is that the visual of seeing someone immediately, we know, oh, a year off his career, boom, gone, you know? And I think in a perfect world, people would be sitting out a year if they get knocked out, but that's not going to happen. That's not realistic. And these are adults making adult decisions for their own lives, and they're aware of the risks they're taking. So I guess my long answer to your short question is I would be on the side of it being banned. Um, I don't feel super strongly about it one way or another, but if it were banned, I wouldn't throw a fit about it. I would just say, okay, if you're going to ban that, let's go ahead and like let's let some of the other silly stuff that we don't allow back in to kind of balance it out.
Okay, that's a fair take, and that wasn't a long answer, by the way. I've heard way longer from some. Are you watching this Evander Holyfield and Vitor Belfort boxing fight this Saturday?
No, I'm not, and it's not because I'm salty about it. It kind of makes me sad if I'm being honest. I The age difference is a little bit too much for me, and Vitor, even though he's in his early 40s, like the difference between your early, remind me how old Evander is.
I think he's 58.
Yeah, he's close to 60. That age gap is just a little bit too much for me to be okay with it. And have they announced yet? Because to be honest with you, I don't know. Have they announced yet whether this will be a standard rule set or is this an exhibition?
I have to
with, like,
double check. I think it is standard rules, though. That's the last I heard. As of jumping on here, that might change between now and Saturday. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's crazy because they wouldn't license him in California. They're doing it in Florida, obviously, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not watching. I don't love it. I don't listen again. He's an adult.
yeah.
He's a former fighter. He knows what he's doing, and if this is a risk that he's willing to take for himself, then it's who am I to say no, he shouldn't be doing it, and no, we shouldn't allow it. But for myself, it's not something I'm going to be paying to watch. I just don't want him to get hurt.
Did you watch Paul and Woodley when that took place? Take that as a no.
No, but I may have found a way to find some footage.
Okay, that's fine.
Again, I wasn't like that's something I don't really want to pay for. I was just because on one hand, I listen.
Well, let me ask you this: did you watch the highlights, or did you actually watch the whole fight?
I watched the highlights.
Okay.
And I saw some of the fight because someone sent me an oil frame.
Yeah, fair enough. No, I know what you mean.
I really wanted Tyron to win. I don't hate the Paul brothers. I think they're actually pretty savvy at what they're doing. It's just that what they're doing is not something I grew up respecting. It's a new thing that it does require a skill set. I will say that becoming an internet influencer, sensation, whatever you want to call those people, there's a skill set involved. It's just not one that as a fight fan makes me want to watch you fight. Yeah. So that's my answer there. And I wish Tyron would have thrown more. That's all I can say. Come on, Tyron.
Switching, taking a hard turn here. Something that you were kind of indirectly involved with, not really, sorry, I should say externally. My English, not very good today, but this Conor McGregor thing with Cormier, I know, he's calling Cormier drunk, and obviously you were at that show, and what was it, like maybe half a beer or something that he had? Like, what do you make of this whole, Conor McGregor tweeting spree? Like, I think fans are starting to turn on him a bit just with the fact that he's not winning, and then he's not really, winning people over either in terms of some of the social media tweet and delete stuff.
Yeah, he's never been shy about being willing to play heel. I do think it's interesting that he is kind of targeting the broadcasters a little bit more, and I think he even got a little salty with Anthony Smith there for a second too.
Because of my interview, because I asked Anthony about it, and he's like, Anthony said something to the extent of like, you get shot for a lot less, and he was kind of like half joking about it, but Conor took it personally. Anyways, that's fine.
Yeah, well, listen, I think Conor's doing what Conor wants to do to maintain his live feed, in the consciousness of the MMA fans. And while I certainly don't want to get dragged into it, there's a savviness to it because here we are talking about him, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what needs to happen in order for him to continue to have these big fights and make a shit ton of money every time he shows up, whether it's a boxing ring or an octagon. There needs to be this continuous buzz with certain peaks of buzz going on. So, and I'll tell you this, he's got some good researchers, whoever they are. I don't know if it's always him or people showing him stuff or whatever, but he'll find he'll find some pretty obscure stuff to point out. And he tagged me in a response to Daniel where Daniel had put him in like the top 5 fighters to watch.
Mhm.
And it was kind of like, okay, well, good on you. We're good. We're good now. Since you put me in this, we're good now. And for some reason, he tagged me. And when I woke up and I saw that he had tagged me in something, I about shit my pants. I was like, oh Lord, here it comes. Like,
Mhm.
I really don't want to get in a Twitter feud with Conor McGregor,
Yeah.
especially. I love Kavanaugh, and I have an interesting perspective on Conor now because James Gallagher. I don't say it like an Irish
No, no, I
person.
know
I'll say it
that's James Gallagher trains at Glory because of
yeah.
him being over
So
there.
like,
Yeah.
I hear the other side of Conor. What I would probably say is the real Conor. I've not met Conor. I've not spent time with Conor, but I've spent a lot of time with James, and so now I feel like I have a little bit more balanced perspective on who Conor really is and how much of this is maybe just the public persona. So I'm not prepared to like say that he's a shitty person or he shouldn't be doing this. He's doing what he feels like he needs to do, and um, I've heard enough stories about good things he's done to like be like, all right, do your thing,
Yeah.
whatever. Just please don't drag me
Yeah, yeah,
into
yeah.
it.
No, I hear you on that. Just 2 more quick things. Khabib Nurmagomedov made some comments recently about ring card girls. I know you
Yeah.
do work for a promotion that had a ring boy in Elias Theodorou, who
Yeah.
I know quite well because Elias is obviously Canadian. Just your thoughts. Are ring card girls something that needs to be revisited and say, hey, maybe we don't need this? Or what's your take on ring card girls?
No, I think it's a cultural difference, though, and I think we have to accept that that is a very valid opinion for him to have,
Mhm.
and it's his personal opinion. I don't, and he was talking about why he's not going to have them at his promotion, which is certainly that's within his right to do so.
100%. Yeah.
I think right now, listen, right now, everybody I feel like is finding reasons to get their feelings hurt. If he had specifically attacked our ring card girls or any ring card girl by name, I definitely would jump to their defense. I think that it's more the idea for him is just not something culturally that he finds valid, and I respect that about him, and I think he's perfectly fine and within his rights to talk about that. And I will say this: I don't appreciate the line of thinking that he doesn't respect women, because I think that when you haven't grown up in a Muslim culture, the respect for women looks different, I think, than maybe our American eyes expect it to.
Mhm.
It takes a different form. I know he has a lot of respect for the women that he trains with. I know he has a lot of respect for other women champions like Valentina and the other. I've seen him interact with the other women that are managed by Ali. So like, it's not as though he doesn't respect women. I think in the culture that he grew up in, he respects women so much that he wants them to be presented in a certain way. I don't think, for instance, that he would, and maybe he can correct me if I'm wrong, and
Mhm.
I'm happy for him to correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think he would have a problem with a woman commentating either.
Right.
I don't think he necessarily thinks that women should be banned from MMA. I don't think it's something he would want his wife or daughters to do, perhaps.
Mhm.
But no, that's my opinion on it. Is like I'm perfectly fine with him saying what he said as long as he doesn't attack anybody by name. And I do think that I don't think he should be getting so much shit for like, oh, Khabib doesn't like women. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, no, it's a weird society we're in right now. Where anyway, we,
Yeah.
we could have a whole podcast on that for sure. Something you kind of actually alluded to, someone that Khabib has talked very highly of, Kayla Harrison. Do you think she's
Yeah.
going to the UFC next year? I think with this Holly Holm fight being booked at 45, we got Felicia Spencer fighting again at 45. I think there could be some legs here. Do you think Kayla Harrison's in the UFC next year?
I think there could be. I mean, I would love to see her in the UFC. Selfishly, I really would. I've called her fights in Invicta, and I've spoken to her individually. And my goodness, you could not get a more lovely human being. And I love the balance of her being willing to speak her mind and not afraid to say certain things on the microphone, but at the same time, just so humble and gracious and kind behind the scenes as well. I can't get enough of her, and I hope she makes it to the UFC. She did fight at 45 when she fought in Invicta, and I think there was a little bit of a point to be made, when she did that. I would love to see it. I'm not in the business predicting what weight classes get flourished and what don't, because I've been asking for atom weight forever, and
Yeah, I
I don't
know.
know if
Yeah,
that's happening either. So
yeah.
that's that's out of my lane.
Laura, thanks so much for doing this. This was awesome. Really appreciate it. I got a million things to do. Anything you want to plug before we get out of here? Social media, anything you got going on, Wimp to Warrior? The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, people can always find me, especially on Instagram. I try to be really active in messaging people back or in responding to comments. So that's at Laura_Sanko. And yeah, the biggest thing is just Wimp to Warrior. I think if people have any curiosity about what it is, Google it, find the website, read about it, find a gym near you that has a program, and message me when you do, because I'm excited to hear the real experiences of people who are going through the program. I'm already like chatting with a few of them, and it's really fulfilling me to hear the stories of people coming from outside the MMA community and falling in love with MMA the way that I did.